Okay, so Smoke and Snow, Season 2, Episode 5, A Noble Plot. When last we left the heroes, I believe you were all in Brackenwald. You had just spoken to the young noble cousin of the Lord of Brackenwald, a noble by the name of Tristan Beaumont, who some of you thought maybe was a little bit on the dodgy side. And it turned out that he was the person responsible for all of the trade negotiations that are currently going on between your hometown of New Zealand and the relatively new arrivals of Brackenwald, Castle Brackenwald, and the surrounding sort of town that's around the walls of it. And you suspect, potentially know, that he might be the person behind hiring the Crimson Coin to ramp up the crime rate in New Zealand as a way to get trade concessions with New Zealand, get himself a better deal in the trade negotiations, basically. So you guys had a little bit of discussion. Obviously, we gathered in the sort of the after session, sort of commenting that older Brock wasn't exactly keen on the young noble fellow, but obviously, if you guys actually choose to do stuff about it, remains to be seen. So we start off with you guys in Brackenwald, as I've said previously. You've talked to the Duke, you've talked to the Duchess, you've talked to Tristan Beaumont about trade, etc. You'd done a little bit of shopping and stuff like that, and then we finished off just as you were planning your next move, I believe. So it's pretty much over to you guys, to be honest. What do you guys want to do?
I think first things first, we dissuade Brock not to kill the man outright.
I was never going to do that. Not until he opened his mouth again, anyway.
You maybe reevaluate that plan. Maybe we shouldn't dissuade him.
We're not in the middle of the town.
Well, I think what we should really do is go and find the underside of this city and stir up the hornet's nest for them.
I mean, because we were going to potentially not confront him, but speak to him with Quentin and Weimar.
I believe your plan was to sort of leverage your connection with the Crimson Coin to basically sort of make it seem like you're working on their behalf, sort of thing, and try and sort of lean on him in that way.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to do that 1-to-1 or like you say, try and find if there's a similar sort of outfit in this part, Brackenwald.
I think we do both.
Well,
you're probably best man to find.
I was going to say, as you guys are contemplating this, I'll point out just for flavour, because you will have noticed this, that you're getting near to the 2 months of the Valconan autumn now. You will have noticed this because the leaves on the trees, the sort of more deciduous trees, have started to change colour to gold and browns and reds. And obviously Valconan, before the climate change wrought by the mashing together of the two plains, Dolmorn and Valconan, didn't really have an autumn. It just had a very short summer and a massive winter. Whereas now it seems to it's got still a small summer, but it also has a small spring and a small autumn with a slightly less long winter. So it's probably quite a surprising thing certainly to Brock, because obviously you grew up in Valconan where there wasn't really this long autumn period. Obviously Malcolm and Quentin, having come from Rohaleen originally, where it's more temperate, you will be familiar with the sort of season of autumn. But as you're sort of discussing this and you're sort of getting it, you notice that a large party of men sat on horseback. They're wearing very regal colours. You recognise the sort of standard Brackenwald heraldry on them. Seems to be sort of gathering together on the edge, the sort of southern edge of the castle, looking like they're getting ready to sally forth from the settlement itself. You know, you can see there's a couple of like squires and like stable boys and stuff like that running out, like checking the stirrups, etc. You can see there's a number of men, like not knights, but like men at arms, sort of people like sat on horses. And sort of at the front of this group, you see the dashing figure of Tristan Beaumont sat astride a white horse. He appears to be like talking to a few of the men, their servants, etc. Like I said, they're checking over all their gear, but they appear to be getting ready to head forth from the settlement as a group.
Do they look like they're dressed for war or hunting or travel or?
You can see that Tristan, he appears to have a narrow-bladed saber at his side, but he's not wearing like plate armor or anything like that. You can see that the men-at-arms, the soldiers they've got with them, are sort of slightly more heavily armed, and they've got chainmail and they've all got weapons. As you're sort of looking across, Malcolm, you also notice that there's 3 slightly older men wearing almost like monkish robes, you know, sort of like Hessian brown robes, who are also sat on slightly less magnificent looking stallions, and they don't appear to be armed at all, although you notice that each of them has, where the others have got weapons hanging off their belt, these handful of monks, for want of a better term, have got like large sort of sacks and like saddlebags like hanging at the side of them, although you can tell by the way they're sort of hanging loose that like there's nothing in them.
Okay. Can I approach one of the monks? How far away are they from us?
They're a little distance, but they're still getting their stuff together. They're not immediately heading out, so you've got time to like head over.
Cool. So I'll head over to one of the monks and just kind of casually, what's all the fuss about?
Okay, as you head over to this monk, he looks at you and he says, greetings to you, my son. We are about to head out on a most important mission for the Lord of Brackenwald. Younger Lord Beaumont here and his men have been kind enough to offer us assistance and protection on this important journey.
Oh, and where are you journeying to?
We're travelling south into the Roll Hills, to the south of here. There is a certain plant that grows there. I'm sure you may have heard of it. The fabled black lotus. It's a remarkable plant. Its wood is extremely useful as a flexible but strong building material. So it will be useful for the repair efforts on the gate, and also its flowers and its sap, when brewed by someone who has knowledge of herbalism like myself and my brothers, it can be rendered into a powerful sleeping draught. It is the desire of Lord Brackenwald that we brew such a draught so that if other interlopers should encroach on our settlement, that rather than simply killing them, they could be overpowered with the draught and then later interrogated to find out what they know.
Very clever.
Much as I deplore as a man of the cloth, much as I deplore violence, it seems a far better way of handling such things than the mob that tore apart the creature that did the damage to the gate. And he gestures towards the gate where repair efforts are still ongoing after the explosion.
And how long will you be gone for?
He says, "Oh well, I shouldn't think it'd take more than a couple of days. The area we're going to, it's as I say, it's just to the south of here. Although the terrain is somewhat hard going due to the hills and the woodlands around there, etc. But a journey of about a day should take us to where the black lotus grows."
Okay. And is it dangerous in the rural hills?
Well, of course, there's all sorts of animals, and also we have been menaced by these stranger reptilian creatures recently, but aside from that, I don't believe it's too dangerous. But one never knows. That's why myself and my brothers were so grateful when young Lord Beaumont volunteered to escort us and bring his personal guard with him in order to help protect us. And as he's saying this, you see Tristan Beaumont has obviously like seen you sort of like head across, and he sort of slowly like steers his horse over in your direction, and he says, "All right, sir, Mr. Harp. Yes, of course. Please forgive me." And he says, "Well, what do you make of my horse, Mr. Harp?" And he like pats the neck of his like white horse. "Fine beast, isn't she?"
Yeah. Looks very pretty.
Ah, thank you. The as I'm sure the good father has told you, we're planning to go out and safeguard these people while they're gathering their herbs or whatever errand my noble cousin has set them. Obviously, it's the least we could do given all the troubles, and most of my cousin's men are busy ensuring the safety of the settlement, aiding with the repairs and such like, making sure no one takes advantage of the current situation. So, of course, what else could I do but offer my own personal guard and myself to help safeguard them in the journey into the hills. After all, with these creatures lurking about, who knows what devilry may befall them.
Yes, you truly are a heroic type.
Oh, you're too kind, sir. You're too kind. But if yourself and your colleagues are available, you would be more than welcome to join us. Perhaps we could talk a little bit more about trade and such like as we travel.
We have unfortunately we have other business in the city.
Of course. I entirely understand.
Perhaps another time.
Oh yes. Well,
we could travel together.
Indeed. Well, it's my home being back in the old country, so to speak. Obviously, we used to have the run of the Dolmen Wood there, and there's plenty of good hunting. And whilst these the woodlands around here are a sparse and scrabbly collection of trees in comparison to that, it's my hope that once things have settled down and we're able to get our bearings a little bit more, that the noble pursuits of hunting, riding, etc., may once again be embraced by all goodly men within the settlement of Brackenwold.
A truly just aim.
Indeed. It's my hope that when these trade negotiations are concluded between ourselves and your own home settlement, that there will be a sort of a melding of cultures. I'm sure we have many traditions that seem strange to you, and vice versa. But it's my hope that all our peoples can come together in a spirit of friendship and an exchange of cultures.
Yes, truly, that would be wonderful.
Indeed. Well, I must see to the preparations and get underway with my men. So I won't keep you any longer, Mr. Harper. Safe travels to you.
And to you, Mr. Beaumont.
Indeed. And he sort of gallops off but sort of slightly trots off to the head of the thing, and he starts talking to his men, and you can overhear that they're basically just like checking their weapons and their equipment ready for this like ride out.
But before he goes, John,
yeah, he's just like,
I'm going to get a copper coin out of my pocket.
Yep.
Stick the red thumbprint on it.
Okay.
And just toss it to him, saying, "That's a good luck charm." I'll wink at him.
He obviously, like, you throw some at him, instinctively he goes. And he's a noble. He's been trained in like sports and hunting and stuff like that. So he just catches it in the air in like a gloved hand. He's got like a leather glove on, like falconer's glove, and he brings it down. He looks a bit curious at first, and then as he turns over, he does his best to disguise his expression. But you notice one of his eyes twitches a little bit. And he seems to go a little bit pale, and he's like, yes. Yes, of course. What is your name, young fellow?
Yeah, just call me Duke. It's okay.
At which point he definitely does go pale, and you actually see him do like one of those audible like, as he like gulps a little bit, and he says, I have a little and he's like stammering a little bit after his words. I have a little time before we need to set forth, preparations to make, etc. Perhaps, Duke, we could talk a little before my party sallies forth.
Gladly. Sator's meeting later.
Indeed. He athletically swings down off his horse. He just sort of like doesn't even look. He just sort of like reaches out with the reins, and like one of his servants like runs over and takes the reins of the horse, and then he lets it go, and he sort of like walks a little bit towards you, and then sort of like gestures with his glove, as if like, oh yeah, we're gonna like step aside. Obviously, he wants to be like a little bit away from his men.
Yep. Yeah. I'll let him step aside.
Yeah, obviously the two of you step aside. Obviously, it's up to you whether you're taking Brock and Malcolm with you.
It's entirely their choice. It's free reign as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. So Brock and Malcolm, you can be there if you want. He will just assume that, because obviously he's assuming that Quentin's like the guy behind the Crimson Coin. So if you're with him, he'll just assume that like you're probably members, or you're like his personal guard or something along those lines. But so you can be there if you want.
No, I'll stay with the priests or the monks.
I'll stand behind. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so you're sort of stood there as a Duke, Quentin. You've got like Brock, like arms folded, like towering behind you, giving it like I'm like the heavy hitter. Yeah. And he gestures you to the side, and he's like, I wasn't aware that any. And he seems to like be struggling for his words, and he's like looking around. He's looking even more shifty than he normally does. Keeps like glancing over his shoulder, and he's like, I wasn't aware that you would be paying us a visit.
Well, if I made my emotions clear, I wouldn't be alive for very long, would I?
Oh, well, no, I suppose not. You would know more about that thing than I. I take it everything is proceeding satisfactorily?
To whose satisfaction? Mine or yours?
Well, both of ours, I would hope. I mean, in our previous, albeit not face-to-face, but in our previous communications, I got the impression that everything was proceeding according to the plan.
Well, the plan's got an ointment in it at the moment.
Oh, how do you mean? I'm not sure I follow.
Well, we've done as you've asked.
Indeed.
And it's drawn attention from certain military parties.
Oh, I see. Well, yes. Well, obviously, as I discussed with the young woman who's your lieutenant, we were aware that this might be the case going forward, but she assured me that they could handle it.
Well, they can to a degree. They will continue to move around the city, but my concern now is that certain key members of my organisation are going to start having their faces plastered all over the walls.
Oh, I see.
And obviously, from my point of view, the solution there is to move those people out of the city. And, well, you're nearest.
Well, that all seems to make sense. So what is it you need from me?
I need a quota.
A quota?
Well, if they move here, they're loose-fingered.
Oh, I see. Well, obviously, I don't have any direct control over the legal authorities here. I mean, obviously, my own personal guard, etc. Obviously, I mean, as you know, I've been placed in charge by my noble cousin, the Duke, in charge of the trade negotiations, but I don't have any direct control over the town guard as such.
No, it's more of a warning, really.
Oh, I see. You're just giving me the heads
up. So you can expect this kind of thing.
Ah, I see. Well, I do appreciate the warning. And obviously I'm honoured that you chose to deliver it personally rather than sending your lieutenant. Is there anything else you need from me?
Just to let you know that for the next week, everybody's lying low.
I see. We'll wait for the heat to die off.
That's it.
Oh well, yes, well, entirely understandable. As long as it doesn't interfere with the main plan, I don't see that that's a problem.
I'm sure it won't.
Oh, splendid, splendid. Well, if there's nothing else, Duke, I'll let you go about your business, and I'll get back to mine.
There is one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
My lieutenant specifically mentioned the word threats last time I talked to her.
Threats?
Yes, coming from your end. Now, obviously, it's in my duty to look after her, but I need to get both sides of the story.
But I'm not really sure what she could be referring to. Did she give any specifics when she mentioned these threats?
The threat was that should the plan not go ahead as planned, then certain actions would be taken against herself and those she has entrusted.
Well, I can assure you that I would, as long as everything is proceeding, I have no wish to take any action. I'm most satisfied with how things have been going at the moment. Obviously, what your lieutenant might have perceived as threats. Obviously, I've said that if I was dissatisfied with what was occurring, or she did not meet your side of the bargain, of course I would let her know that maybe that is what she perceived as threats. Well, as I say, I'm not an inflexible man. I mean, as you say, you tell me that you need a week to wait for things to blow over, as it were. I'm fine with that. I'm happy for you to take a week. I understand we have to be flexible in these sort of situations, changing circumstances, etc. So
Thoughts exactly.
Oh yes, I'm sorry if your lieutenant mistook any of my potential concerns as threats. It's not in my nature to make threats. If I were dissatisfied with what was going on, I would have made it known very plainly. I'm not a duke or anything like my noble cousin, and he sort of chuckles a bit to himself, or indeed yourself. But I am a noble of the court of Brackenwold. It is not in my nature to make clandestine threats.
Well, that's all cleared up then. Maybe we'll meet again sometime.
Ah, indeed. Well, pleasant travels to you. I mean, if there's anything else you need while you're here, of course I'll be unavailable for a day or two. As this protecting the good fathers over there. But after that, I'll be returning to Brackenwold. If you need anything, please feel free to call on me. As I say, I've been most satisfied with how everything has been proceeding so far.
That's good to hear.
He holds out a hand. It's like a gloved hand. Well,
yeah, I'll
it's been
spit on my hand and
you see like his like the corner of his mouth sort of crinkle a little bit in distaste, but he doesn't say anything. Obviously, he's got a glove on. He shakes your hand and will say, "Well, it's nice to put a face to the name. Safe travels." And then he walks back over to where this like servant's still holding his horse. Athletically like, vaults back onto the saddle, takes the reins, and again he sort of like trots over to where his men are, and they carry on the preparations to head out. Just to explain to you, Weimar, we've basically had a few technical problems. They've basically just started out. They were discussing what they're planning to do next. They're obviously still at Brackenwold. They've seen that Tristan Beaumont is apparently taking his personal guard, and they're accompanying 3 monks that say they're travelling to the south, to the rural hills. They're going to gather some black lotus, which the wood is useful for repairs. It's flexible. and they're also going to make like a potent sleeping draft out of it, with the idea that if any more of these creatures attack, they can basically drug them with this sleeping draft, and then they can be interrogated rather than them just be like tore apart and they don't get any information. Quentin's posed as the Duke of the Crimson Court, got a bit of extra information from Tristan, and now Tristan's like, oh, be safe, and he's gone back over to his men to carry on the prep before they set out, and that's pretty much you up to date.
Yep, thanks. And sorry again, I really fucked up my timings tonight.
It's absolutely fine, mate. To be honest, we had like half an hour to like an hour of like, oh, why can't anyone connect to Foundry first? So.
Oh yeah, I'm currently in that myself, so
Yeah.
It appears to be going now, but yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're currently at the fort then.
Yeah, you're currently still at Brackenwall. Like I say, Tristan Beaumont, he's got like his personal guard. They're all on horses. They're all armed. He's got like a saber. All of his men are like tooled up. They've got these 3 like older monks with them who aren't armed, but they've got like saddlebags and the like. They're empty, probably to get this like Black Lotus in. They're all getting ready to travel south. The other heroes of Aston have been told like it's going to take a couple of days, like one day there, one day back. They know a place where this like Black Lotus grows. They're going to go and gather it, come back. But they're like, oh yeah, them like lizard men have recently attacked us. Like, oh, there might be some more of them in the hills. And obviously most of the Duke's men are busy protecting the town, helping with the repairs. So Tristan Beaumont's like, oh, well, I'll obviously perhaps trying to curry a little bit of favour with his cousin, the Duke. He's like, well, don't worry about it. I'll take my personal guard and I'll sell it forth with these monks and protect them while they gather their herbs. And they're basically just getting their party together. The servants are checking their horses and the stirrups and the saddlebags and all of that. And then Quentin's had his little conversation with Tristan where he posed as the Duke, but now he's returned and they're carrying on their prep to set out. And you guys are pretty much left to your own devices again.
I think Lord Beaumont's being out of the city for a number of days presents an opportunity for us to potentially find out what he's doing. Is there any evidence in his chambers? Is there any valuables in his chambers? And that we could use to put him under pressure. Kind of looking at Quentin for see if he has any interest in such an endeavor.
I'm happy to rob him.
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely he's going to have anything on paper, though, is he? As in, like, evidence of...
The man strikes me as a coward.
Yeah.
He is very worried about facing the possibilities of being shoved in a corner. Athletic, yes, but do you ever need that many guards to take somebody to get a flower?
Yeah, obviously you guys have never seen him in any sort of like combat or like physical altercation, so you know he's got a sword, but it's from what you've seen in the court, it seems to be the thing in like Brackenmore that like the only people who regularly carry around like swords are nobles. Like even the guard you can see with him at the minute are obviously not knights, they're like his personal guard. They're carrying like maces and stuff like that. They don't seem to be carrying swords. Whereas like every noble you've seen, which granted is like only really the Duke and a couple of minor nobles, they all seem to carry these like almost like rapier sort of like thin blades on their hip. But whether it's just a status symbol or whether they are actually trained in them, you don't really know.
Honestly, in terms of threat, he's only a threat in terms of what he's positioning himself to do for trade negotiations. If he decided to take out his wrath on the Crimson Coin, I'm fairly certain he'd be dead very quickly.
And as you guys are continuing to discuss this, you hear Tristan sort of like in the distance, obviously talking to like his party. He says, "Right then, good friars, are you all ready?" And they're like, "Oh yes, yes, my lord, yes, my lord." And he says, he looks at his men. He says, "Men, are you ready?" And they're like, "Yes, awaiting your word, my lord." And he's like, "Well, let us go then." And he gestures with his leather gauntleted hand, and all the servants sort of like disappear off and start filtering back into the settlement. And you see these horses set off at a slow trot, heading southwards towards the Rule Hills. Can't hear you, Quentin, if you're talking.
In terms of the trade negotiations, we've already got an upper hand because we know how to get to and from faster. So once that's on the table, no matter how much crime is produced, it's not going to alter the fact that we've got a fast port, whereas they'd still be carrying it down a brick road.
Ideally, though, we want to turn the Crimson Coin to our side, don't we? And
Well, we
use
will.
them. So they're not against us, they're with us.
We can do that, but like I say, if he's using the Crimson Coin to up the ante for the trade negotiations, and we have an even bigger ante because we've got the gateway between the two places, suddenly his hand becomes a lot weaker because of this gateway. So he has no reason to take anything out on the Crimson Coin other than frustration.
Yeah. How are we going to get the Crimson Coin on our side without giving them loads of money?
Well,
That's their driving factor, isn't it?
money's easily gained. If it goes wrong because suddenly New Zealand has the upper hand in terms of trade negotiations, it's not the Crimson Coin's fault. We can stomach a little bit more crime, so it still looks like they're doing their job. He can't blame them for it going wrong because we found a gateway.
I was just thinking if we could do both, then we'd have the complete upper hand because we'd have got rid of the Crimson Coin.
Well, we can do both because in the conversation I've just
And then
had
have
with
the
him,
game.
I did say that I'd be sending some people that are a bit too famous to this area to start stealing. So I've already let him know I'm quite happy to put agents in his city. Which gives us the upper hand because suddenly he is fearful of these people coming in. And he has no idea who they are.
But yeah, it'd be even better if we actually did it.
I will.
Yeah.
If there's nobody operating here, I'm going to send some people down here to start operating. Maybe the crime levels suddenly become a little bit even. Then he doesn't have the upper hand in any stretch of the imagination.
So what are we looking to do in the meantime?
Well, I think we're done here. Unless anybody else has any business. We need to get back, inform our traders of the gateway, inform the Crimson Coin of the plan, and then we need to go to this island of the Moor.
Yeah, the
whatever it was.
Beast Mall, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we need to do at this stage here, is there?
I don't think
Anything
so.
else? Yeah.
Okay, so is the plan, guys, that you're going to head to the Wench Gate, use it to get back to New Zealand so as quickly as you can?
Yeah, check the time difference.
Yeah, no problems. Obviously, you'll have, given your previous experience, you'll have checked that the last time you come through, and it does appear that like they're now just like instantaneously move between the other because they're in the same realm. So there's no like weird, like funky time displacement like there was previously.
Yeah. Here's my vision: is that we control both gates, so we put New Zealand in charge of both gateways, and then they've got no choice if they want to use a fast route to deal with us.
So what are we going to use? Some sort of guards or manpower on the,
I think we get some guards in, yeah.
even though it's right on their doorstep?
Yeah, but they don't know it's active yet, do they?
Oh, not yet. No. But I mean, once it is.
Once it is, we can negotiate control of both ends.
Yeah.
But for now, we seize it. It's ours.
Okay, so does anyone have anything you want to do before you set off to the Wench Gate?
No, I think we're good.
Don't think so.
Okay, no problems. So it takes just under a day to get to the Wench Gate. Obviously, you see it much as it was before. This gateway made of interlocking trees with these figures. Now their sort of mouths and faces locked in these expressions of silent horror. So you approach, you know the method to activate it, so quick cut, some blood, bit of tree sap. You touch the area between the gateway, and after a few moments you see this flickering, which then resolves into a view through the portal to the wolf forest to the south of New Zealand. You see the sort of deciduous trees that are dotted around Brackenwall replaced by the sort of the oaks that now seem to form the mainstay of the wolf forest.
Ride on through.
Okay, no problems. You head through. There is a brief sort of like lurch, you know, like as when if you go on a roller coaster or something, you know, when your stomach seems to lurch, but it lasts no more than a couple of seconds, and you soon find yourself emerging from the other side, from the south gate, into the familiar oak forests of the wolf forest. You know that from here, New Zealand is a couple of days' ride, sort of following the coast to the west. Is there anything you guys want to do, or are you just heading straight for New Zealand?
Straight to New Zealand.
Yeah, I guess we're. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got an appointment, haven't we?
Mm.
So you follow the coast for your first day. You head past the small chicken farm that you saw previously. As you head past, you don't see anyone outside as you head past. I'm going to ask, can one of you please roll me, let's see, it's 4d10.
I can, yeah.
Just see if any random shenanigans occur.
That would look like a no.
No. So for the first day's travel along the coast, nothing untoward occurs. The terrain here is fairly flat because it's on the coast, so you have no problems moving at a fairly rapid pace. As I say, you head past this small chicken farm that you went to before. You sort of passed that early on your first day's travel. The chicken farm that belongs to William Dinsmore, the farmer that you spoke to previously. Obviously, if you want to call in there or do anything with that, you can do. Otherwise, you can ride on and make camp sort of further on in the evening. Entirely down to you guys.
I think we're under pressure, so we'll just ride on and make camp.
Okay, no problems. So you make camp. The evening, you'll keep watches, etc. The evening's fairly uneventful and peaceful. You know, you're lulled to sleep with the gentle lapping of the coastal waters against the shore. You wake up in the morning. Anyone who's down hit points can regain D3 hit points. And you set off the next morning knowing that You'll arrive at New Zealand like late in the evening. So again, if someone can roll me 4d10 to see if anything occurs while you're travelling.
No ones again.
Okay, lovely. So yeah, your second day's travel is also fairly uneventful. And just to point out for future reference, as you're travelling, basically the more points you travel within a day, the more segments you travel within a day, determines the dice that are rolled for random encounters. If you travel 4 segments a day, you roll d10s. If it's 3, you roll d8s. If it's 2, you roll d6s. So if you guys are literally like looking for stuff, you want to find some like stuff, then the slower you move, the more likely you are to come across stuff. Just to let you guys know for the future. But as you say, you're under time pressure now, so you push on to New Zealand. And so at the end of the second day, it's just starting to get dark. You're all just starting to feel a bit tired. It's very late evening. The sunlight's just about gone. There's maybe like a little bit of light filtering over the horizon still. Yeah, it's just starting to get past what we'd call dusk. You approach New Zealand. You see the familiar towers and the partial stone walls rising up in front of you. However, as you get, before you even get close enough to sort of see the whole city, you see just over the little rise, the little hillocks that you're travelling over, you see a sort of dull amber glow coming from the other side of the hillocks in the direction where New Zealand is, as if like a light being cast by many torches.
Go faster, guys.
I love thought like Quentin at the back and say, yeah, we might want to speed up, guys. Okay, yeah, so you all move faster. And as you go over this hillock, you see what appears to be a bizarre procession approaching the gates of New Zealand. You see, like, this procession is made up of, must be at least 30 individuals, and they're these bizarre, sort of tall, muscular, sort of grey-skinned, like primitive humanoids with like tusks, vaguely like porcine features, all wearing sort of furs and stuff like that. They're all carrying torches and they're sort of walking. They're not charging, they're just like walking, approaching the gate. In the middle, you see what appears to be a large, luxurious palanquin with like curtains of finest silk coming down, and there's like half a dozen like particularly muscular figures of these strange humanoids sort of holding the poles that are lifting this palanquin, and through the gauzy haze of these curtains that are hanging down, you can just about make out like a large silhouette of someone sat in this palanquin enshrouded in these luxurious velvet drapes and curtains. And you can see a couple of the figures at the front of this procession are like, they're carrying drums and they're going dung, 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 and the other people are like moving forward slowly, not like charging towards the settlement, just like approaching it like a walking pace basically. And the light is coming from like the torches that all of these people are carrying, obviously not the ones with drums that are carrying the palanquin, but the rest of them are also carrying torches as they walk. It almost looks like a ceremonial procession of some sort, the sort of slow rhythmic way in which it's moving.
How far away are we from them, and how far away are they from the wall?
They're probably about 60 feet away from the wall. So like, obviously the guards have seen them. You notice the guards, they look like they're at attention, and you notice a few more guards than there normally are, but like they're not like running, screaming, or like panicking, or like getting weapons drawn or anything. You're probably 100 feet away because you've just come over a rise. You've just basically come round the sort of coast. But like I say, you're effectively, you've been moving at speed because you want to get to New Zealand as quickly as possible, whereas they're sort of going at this very slow sort of rhythmic pace that seems to be dictated by these two drummers, like dung, 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 dung.
Cool. So I think we'd like to head down towards them, and I guess try and arrive at the gate at roughly the same time?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Like I said, they're moving fairly slowly. You can easily catch up with them. Can you all roll me a d6? If anyone gets a 6, let me know.
Oh, I got 6.
Okay, so anyone who gets a 6, as this procession's moving slowly towards the gate, at one point, Malcolm, as you're sort of watching it and you're all approaching on your horses and your cart, etc., you see the curtain like pulls back a little bit, and you see a sort of quite a big but like fairly elegant and feminine looking like pale skinned hand sort of emerge from between two of these curtains on the palanquin, and a long sort of well manicured like finger just sort of like gestures towards the gates, and then it disappears back in the between the folds of the curtains, and you see they carry on forward, drumming, etc. One thing you do notice is that the elegant but like very large sort of like feminine hand is sort of like has a lot of gold rings on and sort of like bangles around the wrist, but you don't see anything else other than the fact the skin is extremely pale. I mean, we're talking like Brock, like Ice Walker pale, although like I say, it was like a very big hand.
Is it like pale like the people who are carrying the palanquin? Is it as pale as that?
They're a sort of like dirty, like grey, like olive green colour, whereas this is more like a sort of icy, sort of like bluey white colour.
Okay, and did the hand that came out look bigger than the hands of the people who were doing the...
You do a few quick calculations, and you're like, assuming that whatever is in this like palanquin is of human-like proportions, based on the size of the hand, you're like, the person in there must be like 7 or 8 feet tall.
Okay. And these are, the guys carrying it are like standard
they're sort of like roughly like the normal human size, or they're all like very well built and like muscled.
Okay.
And yeah, you catch up with this group. This procession doesn't appear to be paying you any particular mind. They're sort of going about their business. As they arrive at the gates, one of the guards steps forward. He bows and says, we're to convey you," speaking to the procession, "we're to convey your mistress directly to her audience with the mayor." At which point a feminine voice from inside the palanquin says, "Very good, lead on." And this guard starts leading, heading in through New Zealand, and you see this procession start following afterwards.
I'm guessing there's guards left at the gate. Can I kind of just nudge one and go, "Who are these weirdos?"
He says, "Well, this is a visiting diplomat, someone who wishes to set up a trading concern in New Zealand. They've had recent correspondences with the Mayor Kersey, and it appears that they've finally reached an agreement, and they've arranged for a personal meeting. I know the mayor gave orders that if the new Castellan of New Zealand should return, that he would ideally like him to be present at the meeting. We were all told just to be, on our best behaviour, show due deference to the visiting diplomat, and when she arrived, to convey her directly to his residence."
Well, we'd best be going, so if the mayor wants us to attend, and I guess we'll follow the procession towards the...
Yeah, not a problem. You follow the procession to the mayor's house. Obviously, you know where the mayor lives, in the sort of northern, more affluent district of New Zealand. The procession continue at their sort of rhythmical pace. So, are you guys looking to get there at the same time, before them, after them? because obviously you know the way. You could head through the side streets and like get there much quicker than they can, but they're obviously being led down the main street because they can't have this whole procession going down all the little alleyways and stuff like that. It'd be ridiculous.
I think we go faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get there first.
Yeah, you guys, not a problem. You know the layout of this place far better than they do. You head, even with like your recent sort of dislocation in time, you head through the alleyways, you arrive at Mayor Kersey's house, and when you get there, you see the slightly plump, sort of ginger mutton chopped figure of Mayor Kersey sort of standing outside. He's like wringing his pudgy hands a little. He's got his monocle, and you can see he's puffing away on his pipe, which you've noticed he seems to do a little more when he's nervous. He's got his guards there. You can see they're all done out in their like Sunday best, like their dress uniforms, effectively. And he's wearing a suit that probably like 5 years ago was probably like tailored to fit him. However, obviously he's been living the good life a little bit too hard, and it's now looking a bit tight on him, to say the least. But he squeezed himself into like his nicest waistcoat, etc. He sees you all approaching, and he sort of rubs his hands together, like puffs on his pipe, and he looks directly at you, Weimar, and he's like, "Oh, good, Castellan. I'm glad you're here. I was hoping to have you for this meeting, but I did send a messenger to your lodgings, which I gather are to the Hunter and Beetle, but they told me that you left."
Indeed, we've now returned from business.
Oh, jolly good.
What meeting is this?
He says, well, I have a meeting with a fairly influential lady by the name of Thorn Rosier. She's one of the people who runs the. You may have heard of it. She's one of the people who runs the area known as colloquially as Hagshaw. She has
runs the area. Are we talking title or?
Well, from what I gather, there's an order of priestesses of some kind in charge of that area and the various settlements and whatnot throughout the area. I gather there's 3 head priestesses in charge. I can't claim to know all the details. Thorn Rosie is one of these high priestesses, although she seems to have something more of a business mind, trading mind, which is why we've been corresponding. She has a number of trade concerns throughout Hagshaw, and she wishes to open a branch of her business in New Zealand. We've been negotiating for some time. We finally got to the stage. Well, as you know, we're trying to spread our wings in terms of trade a little. Keep the trade flowing. We've reached the point where we're effectively at the point where I thought a personal meeting would be pertinent. So I've invited her. I must admit I wasn't expecting quite all the pomp of the processions that my messengers have told me are approaching, but obviously given recent security concerns, etc., I did want to have someone who was had their finger a little bit more on the pulse of that sort of thing. And obviously, as you are the Castellan of New Zealand, of course, security is your domain. I didn't want you to think I was infringing on your territory. I believe in a distinction between the military and the more sort of trade-based things. But yes, I'm glad you could be here. I'd like to get your opinion of Thorn Rosie and her proposal. It's my belief that although this technically falls within my remit as the mayor because it's connected with trade, obviously anything that could potentially be a threat to security in New Zealand falls within your remit. So I would rather we were of both of the same mind before any agreement was reached. Since we seem to get off to such a splendid footing when we discussed our duties and our relationship previously.
And it's a gesture of respect, I think, to have both of us there.
Yes, indeed.
Case, regardless of anything else.
Indeed, and obviously, I would not dream of giving it the rubber stamp, so to speak, without discussing it with yourself first.
So, I quickly I turn to Malcolm Brock Quentin. So, well, looks like there's my my itinerary is filling up now. So I shall go. If you have need, I don't know, maybe send someone or come find me yourselves.
At which point the mayor breaks in. He says, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Castellan. I couldn't help but overhear. And you're like, he could.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I couldn't help but overhear. Of course, your staff are welcome to join us. Obviously, I will have my scribes and such like there. Obviously, Thorn Rosie will have her people there. I don't think anyone would object.
As much as I'd like to, my liege, I have business elsewhere in the city this evening.
Oh, well, I quite understand, my fine fellow. I do admire an entrepreneur. Tell me what line of work are you in, my fine young fellow?
Acquisition.
Oh, a trader.
Purchase.
Oh, splendid. We must talk about this when we have time. But yes, I wouldn't dream of interrupting your business. Business is the lifeblood of New Zealand, as I always like to say.
I always thought it was the people, but yes.
Well, yes, but I suppose you can't have business without people. That's very true. Wise words, young fellow, wise words.
Brock, Malcolm, feel free to come with, or maybe Quentin needs a hand.
Does Quentin need a hand or backup?
No, I'll be fine.
Okay, then I'll stay and see what's going on.
Yeah, I'll join the party. See what I got to say.
The mayor says, by the way, I know we've got a little time before this pomp and this procession arrives. Is it correct when I hear, Castellan, that you're staying in a tavern?
Yes, well,
Then you haven't taken up residence in one of the towers yet. And he looks surprised.
hadn't had the time to sort these matters out, and resorting to my sort of usual methods. It's fine. Tavern will be fine.
Well, you do have quarters at the towers. That is traditionally the. I mean, I'm not telling your business, Castellan, but that is traditionally where the Castellan would live. I'm sure the quartermaster of the towers would value a chance to speak with you and apprise you of the financial goings on and whatnot and what you need to know.
Yes, at the very least, I should probably do exactly that. Talk to the quartermaster.
Yes,
very good.
definitely.
Very good pointing that out.
Yes, but someone of your, I appreciate that you may not be used to this, but someone of your standing, you need to reside somewhere appropriate that conveys the gravitas of your position within the town.
There's gravitas. I feel like to be had in living with the people as well. A different source, perhaps, but.
Well, I won't tell you your business, Castellan. I'm sure you know it better than I. And as they're saying this, you hear like the drums sort of like getting closer, and you see down the sort of main road this procession of these strange sort of primitive-looking grey-green skinned humanoids in this big palanquin coming down the street. As it reaches just sort of like a little bit shy of where you are, the mayor sort of does like a little bow in front of the procession. Again, you all see this time this like quite large but like elegant pale-skinned feminine hand comes out and sort of makes a gesture, and you hear like the straining of like the muscles of these figures as they like lower this palanquin down to the ground, and two of them pull the curtains back, and you can see for the first time the person who is inside. You can see sat cross-legged on a silk cushion is a large, pale-skinned, voluptuous-looking woman who must be 8 or 9 feet tall as she sort of steps out and stands up to her full height, she's dressed in elegant flowing silks. She has many precious looking sort of like bracelets up her arms, and many precious looking rings on her fingers. She looks incredibly beautiful. She steps forward, smiles, sort of does a little bow herself in front of the mayor. Then as he sort of stands up, she holds a hand out like that. He bends forward and does the traditional kiss on the hand. And she says in a very flowing, sort of lyrical, musical and beautiful voice, which obviously I can't do, she says, Mayor Kersey, it's a pleasure to finally meet you face to face after all our correspondence. It's my hope that, should this meeting prove fruitful, then I will soon be able to set up a branch of my bathhouse in your great town of New Zealand. Which when the mayor sort of slightly stammering, he looks a bit flustered and a bit red-cheeked as he's looking at this like giant, beautiful woman in front of him, and he's like, yes, of course, Lady Rosie. She's like, oh, please, Thorn Rosie is perfectly adequate. I don't stand on titles myself. And he says, yes, of course, Thorn Rosie. May I present to you the Lord Castellan of Protector of New Zealand. This is Castellan Weimar Lone Grove. She looks towards you, says, charmed, I'm sure, and she holds out her hand again.
Yeah, I grab it and I shake it.
You shake it. She laughs musically, and then sort of takes her hand back, and then she says, I'm quite happy to leave my men out here. I can appreciate the fact that there are rather a lot of them for your building, but shall we step inside and discuss things further? He's like, yes, of course, my lady, come through. I have my meeting room prepared, and obviously you all head into this meeting room, and you can see that since you guys were last here, it's obviously been almost like redecorated. You know, they've got all the best silverware out, and there's like new paintings, and like he's obviously trying to create an impression of opulence in this meeting room. There's a long table set out like a dining table, plush backed chairs all around it. Everything like oozes luxury and opulence as you walk in. The bear says, of course I've brought some of my finest chefs to prepare us a meal so that we can discuss things in comfort and civility. And he says, would you care to eat first and discuss business afterwards, or would you rather get straight to it? At which point he looks at both yourself, Weimar, and at this beautiful woman, Thorn Rosie. She's like, well, I'm sure whatever suits yourself and your Lord Castellan is absolutely fine with me, Mayor Kersey. I'm in no rush this evening. I'm hoping after our discussions that I can sample some of the delights of your beautiful town. After all, I've never visited here in person. Of course, I've heard a lot about it from the people of Dear Son, those who have visited, but I've never been here myself, and I must say I'm quite impressed. I hope to sample some of its delights shortly. Oh, you do us an honour, lady. Yes, of course. Obviously, we are at your disposal. Should you require a guide or anything of that like? I can't say we have much in the way of public houses or anything like that. There is, of course, the Hunter and Beetle Tavern, but of course I can arrange for more suitable quarters for someone of your station should it be required. She's like, well, I'm sure we can get on to discuss those matters shortly. It's fine. And they sit down, and as like food's being brought out, and obviously you can all tuck into the food. There's like plates of soup and like bread and various. There's like a 3-course banquet is basically put on in front of you all at various points. And obviously I'm not going to go into all the details of their business arrangements, but as the evening progresses, it appears that Thorn Rosie, this giantess of a woman, has in Dear Son and in a few other places, has like basic branches of like these bathhouses, where basically people can go in, they can enjoy like hot baths, they can get pampered, stuff like that. And she's like talking about, oh yes, I've got a branch of it set up in Dear Son, a branch of it set up in a Virago town. And she says, in fact, recently I've approached the authorities of Brackenwold and the new Rohaleen Council, and they seem to be quite receptive to the idea of me setting up branches in their respective areas as well. But I'm hoping that New Zealand will be the first outside of our own little area of Hagshaw. And she appears to be proposing setting up this bathhouse. And the mayor basically seems to be pretty much all on board. He's like, oh, like we're getting like some people with a bit more money coming through now. We're getting a bit more prosperous. The sort of clientele that's coming through New Zealand is just on that cusp of getting to slightly higher standards. He's like, oh, like a sort of posh, like pampering place like this could obviously like help draw in more of those high rollers, those people with more money to spend. And obviously, you guys know the mayor. He's all about like whatever gets most money, like moving into New Zealand, because he's all about the trade. And that progresses. Obviously, the meeting seems to be going pretty well. He's basically saying, oh, would you need to hire local tradesmen, stuff like that. And she's saying, no, I've got my own people who are very expedient, very quick, like putting up buildings, etc. Or we could buy one that already exists and refit it to our needs. He's saying basically, how long would you need to set it up, assuming we give permission? She's like, well, it'll take a day. At which point the mayor seems like quite shocked. He's like, a day? And she sort of laughs and says, as I've said, my people are extremely proficient. Obviously, I wouldn't dream of setting up stakes here without the permission of yourself and the relevant authorities. But once we have that permission, it won't take us long to establish a branch of our bathhouses here. And the conversation carries on. Like I said, this is all between like courses and over wine, and various drinks are brought out, etc. And you guys, all of you, you're pretty much weighted on hand and foot by the serving staff here. And every time your like glass is empty, you don't even have to lift it up and go like that. Someone just sees your glass is empty, comes over with a wine bottle and is like, tops it up. Every time your plates are empty, like more food's bought out. Like must be costing like a small fortune to like put this big banquet on. Obviously, like the mayor's looking a little bit flustered. He's obviously trying to put on like a good impression though. So as this conversation is going on, which like I say, I'm not going to go into 100% detail because it take hours, but is there anything you guys want to ask or like question or anything like that as this conversation is going on? So obviously there are points where if you've got any concerns or anything like that, you can interject into this like this negotiation that's sort of going on.
So, do they have a sort of... Are they going to be referring people to come to New Zealand as well? What I'm thinking is, like, when someone goes to their franchises, like, is there going to be, like...
Yeah, that's pretty much what they seem to be suggesting, setting up, like, a franchise operation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask this and she says, well, the main benefit of having one of the branches of our bathhouse in here is, of course, we would be hiring many local people to work inside the bathhouse itself. And our aim is, obviously, we have a couple of branches set up throughout Valconen, but much as our bathhouses are splendid, I admit I'm a little biased, but they are splendid. Of course, if you're in the area of New Zealand and you're a well-to-do noble and you fancy a little bit of pampering to wash the dust of travel out of your hair, it's a long ride to Virago Town or to Dear Son. We would rather have, where the people go, we would like to have a branch, and people who are passing through here can avail themselves of our bathhouses without having to travel an unfeasible distance. And of course, if we had a client in Virago Town who was travelling to New Zealand on business, of course we would say to them, well, oh, we have a branch in New Zealand. You really must stop by there, refresh yourself, etc. And the money that they would spend there would, of course, via taxes and the employment of local people, would help to contribute to your splendid town.
So I will have mentioned at some point here as we discuss this, I will have mentioned to the mayor that I think this sounds good, and I think what we need to do is we need to take whatever is in the sort of, I don't know, public funds, however he runs the show here. We need to invest in a basically lodgings for fancier people, like luxury accommodation.
Splendid idea, Castellan, says the mayor. Yes, it's definitely, now we've started to get more of an upscale clientele coming through in New Zealand. I firmly believe we're on the cusp of taking the next step in the fortunes of New Zealand, and if we are going to expand, we need to be attracting people like the good lady Thorn Rose here, who are willing to invest substantially in our town, so that we can continue to grow it and it can continue to prosper.
Yeah, I make sure that he understands that I like the idea of a pipeline where, like, anyone comes in, we'll, cross-reference them to the bathhouse and these lodgings, so that the lodgings would be close to the bathhouse. You get the sort of whole package.
Yep.
They own the bathhouse, we own the accommodations, that sort of thing.
Yep, she seems more than amenable to that. Now, Malcolm, as you're sort of like watching this to and fro and this sort of negotiations going on, you happen to glance over at the lady Thorn Rosie, and as you do so, you feel a noticeable sort of like your sword, the green blade. You feel like the blade noticeably like get warmer, like not like, oh my god, it's burning my leg off, but like noticeably warmer, like you'd held your leg against a radiator for a short time. And as you're sort of looking at it for a split second, to your eyes and your eyes only, her form appears to like shift and flicker, and for just a split second, instead of this beautiful, voluptuous, pale-skinned, 8-foot-tall woman standing there, there is this withered, wretched, almost skeletal-looking, like hag-like figure of much the same height, but like hunched over, like claw-like hands. But then you like blink, and she's back to like being this amazingly beautiful-looking woman.
Okay.
You quickly like look around. I don't anyone else see that, but everyone else is just carrying on chatting. Like no one else appears to have perceived it.
So I will, I guess, subtly, when the conversation moves away from me and Weimar, I will whisper in his ear that my sword showed me a vision that says that she's not all that she pretends to be, and would your own sword have a sense of what might be going on?
Yeah, I give Malcolm a slight nod, and John, I will touch the pommel
Okay.
of the Sunblade, and I will ask it to take a peek at the thoughts of this negotiator.
Okay, so obviously in your mind, not out loud, because you've not progressed beyond the need for that now.
Sword!
Tell me what magic. The sword says, well, I don't know about the nature of it, but there's definitely some sort of semi-permanent magical working around it. Unraveling magics isn't really my speciality. It's possible that my sibling blade, wielded by your fellow over there, might have the ability to pierce such deceptions. Obviously, we all have although we are similar in a way, we are all different in others. We all have our own different abilities.
Right. I suppose I thought as much because, well,
Much in the same way we all have our different ways of communicating. Like I can quite happily chat to you now in the psychic plane, I suppose you might call it. Whereas the green blade appears not to either is not capable or seems not to value verbal communication, as we've seen previously. It's shown the ability to conjure phantasms to communicate, albeit silently. So it would seem to follow to me that perhaps it has some ability to perceive, or maybe pierce such spectral illusions, or whatever you want to call them. I'm not a wizard. I don't know what they call them.
have you any insight into the thoughts of this lady?
He says, "Hold on a second. I'll have a quick look." And he goes like quiet for a little bit, and there's something like it's something like the voice gets like quieter, like he's like the sword is like walking down a corridor away from you, even though obviously the sword hasn't moved. And then so like the voice like comes back a bit louder. It's like, "Hello, that's dashed odd. I'm not getting anything at all." And as the sword says this, you actually see this. The woman turns and like looks directly at you while Moran just smiles.
I smile back.
She doesn't say anything or make any reference to it. And the sword says, "Well, either she's not actually here, which isn't possible because we've seen her interacting with the food. She's been eating, drinking, or whatever, and all of that sort of malarkey. Or she's got some quite powerful shield or magic that's blocking my abilities. I mean, after all, I know I'm impressive, but I'm not infallible."
I lean over to Malcolm and let him know that it's some kind of mirage, and that perhaps his sword could dispel it if we had need to do that.
And I wonder, do we, or are we happy to let it play out?
I think it might. It's just, we don't know anything, but I find it credible that it would just be a matter of courtesy. I imagine it must be. They come from some place called the Hag Shore. Now we know what that might mean, and it must be rough doing business. So, yeah, I think it might just be a lot easier for them to do this instead of not.
Okay.
But I think they're asking for business, right? So they want coin. So.
Okay. Well then, let us leave them to their business.
Obviously, the conversation continues, and at a break in the conversation, this woman, this Thorn Rosie, turns to look at you, Malcolm, and he says, Mr. Harp, isn't it?
It is.
I believe you're acquainted with one of my order.
Perhaps.
Peggy?
What might her name be? Ah, yes. Peggy. My very good friend Peggy. How is she?
Oh, she's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. She left me with a brief message for you. She says to tell you that she is quite happy with how you're your little arrangement worked out previously, albeit it did not end as she expected, which she says that she is quite happy with how it worked out, and she considers the favour you owed her repaid.
Well, I am glad to hear that.
Not at all, not at all. Well, of course, it was the recent events in the night of colourless fire that enabled our sisterhood, through our preserving of the settlements in the area that you now call Hagshaw, enabled us to step fully forward and be embraced by the people there. Without the nights of colourless fire occurring, and she smiles and nods towards you, that may not have been possible.
Well, I am glad that things have worked out.
Indeed, and I'm aware, Mr. Harp, that there are those who seek to slander us merely because we have sought to negotiate a peace between ourselves and the Lord of the mountains in whose shadow we sit. But it seems to me that it is far better to negotiate a mutual peace that benefits us both than waste pointless lives in a conflict that neither of us would benefit greatly from.
True words of wisdom.
Oh,
to be sure.
You're too kind, Mr. Harp. But yes, as I said, my sister considers your favour fully repaid.
Excellent.
And she said to pass on her regards.
And please return my own.
I of course will. And my third sister, she has also been Atrix. She is also, I believe she's also known to yourself. She has been inquiring about you when I said I was travelling here. You may have known her in her previous life. She was a young artist who operated out of Dear Son. She was forced to leave there for the village of Haven. That was due to some unpleasantness. So unfortunately, the village of Haven was destroyed during the nights of colourless fire. But we've embraced her and brought her into our order, and she is now she's now one of the people who helps ensure that Hagshaw will continue to prosper in the future, and she's doing a splendid job of it. I gather she was quite fond and quite grateful to yourselves for your help in her leaving Dear Son due to the unpleasantness, and of course myself and my sisters are of course grateful, because without you having helped her, we would not have been able to bring her into the bosom of our sisterhood.
Yes, we do remember her fondly.
Indeed, it's one of, obviously not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons I'm so keen to set up a branch of our bathhouses here, because, as I say, so at least two of our trio, and she sort of chuckles to herself, regard you all so fondly. Obviously, I have not had the privilege of meeting you all previously, but from what I hear from my sisters, I'm sure we will get on famously.
I certainly hope so.
And then the talk sort of goes back to business, and she's sort of negotiating the mayor's telling you the standard rates of tax and what should be expected to be taxed on a building, and the tax our employees would be paying. And he's basically saying, if you hire local people, we'll give you a little bit of a tax break, obviously to encourage you to employ more locals. And she's saying, she has a small sort of a group of, I suppose, managerial in inverted commas would be the best way of putting it, staff that she'll bring in to help manage it. But the vast majority of the other employees there would be hired from amongst the local people of New Zealand. They would then be trained by a sort of cadre of existing staff, and in time the idea would be that they would be able to be elevated to these managerial positions, and then obviously her management staff would return to one of the other sort of bases of operations they've got, and it would be then a fully sort of localized operation employing 100% sort of local people, which seems to please the mayor. because he's like, oh, you know, get more people employed, and obviously like, more people employed equals more people you can tax, and obviously more rich people spending more money there means he can charge more tax and he can get more money out of it, which seems to be like his main sort of overriding goal of like getting more money. Is there anything anyone else wants to bring up while this sort of business meeting is continuing? I know we're sort of like skipping over it a lot here, but I didn't think you'd relish up 2 hours of me like talking to myself through a business meeting.
I think we're good.
Okay, so the meeting winds to a close, and the mayor says, Lord Castellano, do you have any? I'm quite satisfied to sign this agreement. Obviously, we will need your signature as well, Lord Castellan, on the paperwork. And he sort of clicks his fingers, and a sort of a scribe who's been like sat at the side, sort of like writing down the important bits of this meeting on like a scroll with a quill, sort of comes over with like what looks to be like standard sort of paperwork. There's space for 3 signatures at the bottom. You can see like next to it in neatly like flowing calligraphy writing is like the Lady Thorn Rosie. Under that it says the mayor. Under that it says the Lord Castellan. And he says, well, if you're satisfied, Lord Castellan, I'm perfectly happy to sign this agreement. Do you have any questions before we put feather to paper, so to speak?
I believe we've covered most of the important aspects, and we'll cover the rest when it comes to it.
Splendid. He sort of turns the scroll round. His scribe brings up a little ink pot with a quill, come out of it, and he puts it on the table in front of the Lady Thorn Rose. He says, "Oh, my lady, if you would be so kind as to sign this paper here." And while he's doing that, the scribe like puts out like another one which is written out the same, and then puts out a third one that is written out the same. And he says, "If you just sign these, check these agreements to make sure you're happy with them. Obviously, they're all identical. One copy is for you, one for myself, and one for the Lord Castellan. If you could sign all 3 of them." She's like, "Yes, of course." And she takes up this quill, signs her name on it, on the second one and the third one. The mayor then sort of like waits a few moments for the ink to dry. He like takes the quill, dips it in, signs his name on the 3, and they says, "If you would, my Lord Castellan."
Yeah, and I do. I sign them.
Okay, you sign them. You see the scribe sort of like picks them all up and like blows on them and like drops a bit of powder on them to like dry the ink. He then folds them up, wraps a bit of ribbon around them, gets the old sealing wax out. At which point the mayor reaches over and sort of like puts his like signet ring into the wax. Does that on all 3 of them. One of these scrolls is handed to you, Weimar, by the scribe. Another is handed to Thorn Rosie, and one is handed to the mayor. Well, splendid. I'm pleased to see our business meeting has reached such a fruitful and hopefully lucrative end. It's just been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure speaking with you, my lady. And she's like, "Oh yes, I'm also pleased that our business relations are getting off to such a sterling start. If you don't have any objection, I'd like to get my people started straight away on the business of securing our premises." And he's like, "Oh, and you're sure you don't need any help with that, my lady? Construction workers, like I say." No, it's absolutely fine. My people are very proficient. As I've said, it should take us approximately a day to set up. The mayor still looks a little bit unsure. He's like raised an eyebrow, and he's like, "Well, as you say, my lady, it's your affair. We're happy for you to establish your bathhouse here, and how you choose to construct it, as long as you keep within the laws of New Zealand, of course, then that is fine. If you wish to leave straight away, I'll let you get about your business." She stands up again, offers a hand to the mayor, who like bends and kisses it. Again, she offers a hand to you, Weimar. I'm assuming you like do the awkward handshake again.
Yeah, shake it. Yeah.
You see, like the mayor sort of like bristles a bit. He's like, "I'm not supposed to do it," but he doesn't say anything. And she smiles and laughs musically again, and then she says, "Well, gentlemen," and she nods at all of you in turn, "it has been a pleasure." And she turns around, her voluminous like velvet gown sweeping the floor as she walks out. You see her through the open door. She gets back into the palanquin, sits on the cushion cross-legged. The curtains are closed by her workers, her men. They strain and pick up this palanquin again. The party sort of pivots round, and again the drummers at the front start doom, 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 and this procession, still with these torches lit, starts heading off down the main street. The mayor sort of, you see him like sag visibly as like obviously like the stress and like the relief that this is like dealt with. So like all the stress just like drains out of him, and he sort of flops down in his chair, and he's like, oh, and he puts his scroll, his copy of the agreement on the table in front of him, and he's like, well, that all seemed to go extremely well. He says, as much as I enjoy the business of business, so to speak, it is a very high stress situation. And he sort of like loosens his little like necktie a little bit. Yeah, almost like a man who's like just come home from work and they're like, ugh.
Yeah. Yep. Well done. Well done. I think overall, the true value is probably in having the people, such as they are, this particular segment anyway, of Hagshore in closer communication with us.
He says, well, yes, I'm sure you're right, Lord Castle, and obviously, as you're aware, my principal motivation is the expansion and the continued prosperity of New Zealand. It's, now, some may say that it's a foolish dream, but obviously there are no cities as such in Valconen. It's my dream that one day New Zealand might become such a place, a glittering jewel of a trade centre, shining like a beacon on the shores of Valconen at the mouth of the great river. And he almost seems like lost in like a reverie as I imagine. He's like, oh yes, it'd be a splendid thing, but there's a lot of work to do, and well, we need to expand our reach before we can reach that lofty state.
Have you ever considered becoming a poet instead of a mayor?
Well, I don't know about that. I'll admit I've been known to wax lyrical a little bit when it comes to trade, but no, I fear I'm far too weighed down with sins of an earthly sort to reach the exalted heights that poets and such like claim to be inspired by. I see all the poetry I need in the glint of a gold coin at the end of a satisfactory transaction. That's my poetry.
Well, here's the great new verse, I say as I
He chinks
drink the rest of my wine.
and he glugs a bit of his wine as well. While that's going on, have we got Quentin here?
Yeah.
Okay, so whilst all that's been going on, obviously that's taken like a good few hours. We sort of like sketched through it. What's Quentin up to? You've slipped out to go about your business. What's the plan?
Yep. So I've gone to the bar to get a bottle of rum.
So you're heading back to the Hunter and Beetle, is that correct? Or
Yeah.
yeah, no problem. You head to the Hunter and Beetle, the tavern where you've been staying. As you walk in, you head up to the bar. Obviously, you've been staying there, so the barman recognises you. He says, "Oh, that'll be a silver piece."
Yeah, I'll get
You
silver,
chuck
no
him a
problem.
coin. He gives you like a bottle, and then he says, "Oh, by the way, there's a fellow over there who was asking after you and your party. I told them that you were staying here, but you're out." And he points to a table, and as you look at it, you see the figure of Matlal, the red-robed wearing old fellow who spoke to you when you were looking at the statue of the ancient gods, who claimed to be like a priest of the old ways. And he doesn't appear to have noticed you yet, but he's sat at the table, sort of like looking about a bit. He's got a little like tankard on the table in front of him. He's wearing, like I said, these dusty sort of like red robes.
I'll walk over, stick the bottle on the table, and just give him a quick nudge.
he obviously sees you and says, "Oh, greetings to you. I'm pleased that you've returned. Tell me, are the rest of your party with you?"
They're just talking to the mayor at the moment.
Oh well. Oh, I see. Well, that's not a matter. It was really yourself I wanted to speak to. I must first of all make a humble apology. I was entrusted with a letter by a mutual friend of ours. However, given all the recent furore and people not being what they seem to be, I'm sure you understand, I had to do a little bit of investigating before I turned over the letter to, and I don't mean any offence, just to make sure you were who you said you were. I'm now satisfied, of course, that you are, and I would discharge this duty from a mutual friend. That he holds out a small scroll and offers it towards you, like a rolled up piece of parchment.
Yeah, I'll take it and give it a read.
You open it up and you see the crabbed, sort of spidery handwriting of the sage Quelac on the parchment. And as you unroll it and read it, it's almost as though you can hear his voice sort of reading it out to you as you read it. And it says, "Greetings, my young friend. Given how long you've been missing, it seems unlikely I will ever get to smoke another pipe with you, but one can but hope. Miss Dixon has done an admirable job with the town in your absence, and I like to think I've contributed in a small way. However, the time has come for me to leave New Zealand to continue pursuing my own goals. I've heard rumours of a strange land to the east over the forbidding range formed where the Black Spine and Mirror Peak Mountains meet. I have been in communication with the Leng, strange folk, but they are an unparalleled source of information. In case you should return before I do, I have left this message with a young priest by the name of Matt Lal, who has been a firm friend to me in the last few years. If the tribal spirits are willing, perhaps we will meet again. Your friend, Quelac. P.S. If Mr. Harp is with you still, let him know that, in view of everything that has happened, I'm perfectly happy not to pursue any further money owed to me on this one occasion." And that's all he wrote. At which point the priest says, "Well, I've handed the letter over as I said I would do. So I'll leave you to the rest of your business. May you walk in the shadow of the old gods." He smiles, nods,
And you.
and he makes his exit stage left.
Okay, I'll roll that back up nice and tight and put it in a pouch.
No problems.
Now I'm going to take this bottle and go to the meeting place that I agreed to with the crimson coin.
Yep, not a problem whatsoever. You head to the old warehouse building that you agree would serve as a meeting place, and it doesn't take you too long to locate Martha Perkins. You see this young woman, one piercing blue eye patch over the other, sort of side-swept, sort of shortcut red hair. What do you say to her?
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. So I thought you were in Brackenwold. I hadn't thought you'd be back for a good few days.
Trade secret.
She raises her eyebrows and says, "Well, fair enough, I suppose. How did things go in Brackenwold?"
Extremely well. I've met our mutual friend Tristan.
Ah. She smiles.
I've informed him that we're taking a small break for a week.
And how did he react to that?
He gulped.
Well, that's better than I was expecting, she says. And obviously we've kept to our agreement in terms of the suspension of our more overt activities.
This is where it's going to get better for you. I've informed him that we'll be sending people that are more noted around here to Brackenwold
I see.
to ply their trade. What we didn't tell him is we know how to get there faster.
We do.
Well, I do.
I see. Obviously, I don't expect you to reveal your trade secrets, as you say, but how much faster are we talking?
You're easily going to save a couple of days.
She sort of lets out a low whistle under her breath and says, well, that would certainly be a boon for moving people outside of the normal channels.
Yes. Now, unfortunately, you haven't got a lot of time to use this channel before it's given to the mayor as a bargaining chip.
I see.
So what I propose is you send some people and you start marking buildings that are of monetary interest to us.
I see. So scoping out potential future targets.
Mm-hmm. You then hit the highest profile one that you can and use this method of travel to escape.
I see.
Thus causing the same furore over there as we have here.
And obviously, I'm quite willing to go with this purely for the profit values, but I get the idea. I know you're a shrewd man, Quentin. I get the idea that we're not doing this simply to acquire some excess coinage.
No, this is to...
What's the long game in this?
To fill your bargain, you have to do a certain amount of things for him, correct?
That's true.
Now, if his plan is seen to fail through no fault of your own, you have fulfilled your terms.
I see. So what you're saying is that we effectively make him look unsuitable for his position in Brackenwold, and then when he is removed from being involved in the trade agreements, we're effectively off the hook. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, it's...
Meanwhile...
Sorry, go ahead.
Give it a week, and the mayor will find out about this travel route.
I see.
So he also now has a bargaining chip. So again, his plan for you will fail without you actually having done anything wrong. At least in his eyes.
No, I see what you're saying. It's an audacious plan, but yes, I can see it working. I mean, from what I know about Brackenwold, Tristan's position is mainly due to his being the cousin of the Duke, but I'm sure if he ceases to show progress and results, there are plenty of other hungry nobles who would look to displace him from that position.
That's the problem with nobles, they'll eat each other.
Isn't that the truth? That's why I quite prefer, that's why I like my dukes like I like my books, fictional. And she has a bit of a chuckle. She says, yes, I think that's a daring, but also and I don't mean to blow smoke up your arse, but I think that's a little stroke of genius, Quentin. Yes, we can definitely do that.
Excellent. So, this is what you do. This is where you go. And I will tell her where the gateway is.
Okay, at first you explain how the gateway works and where it is and where it comes out, etc. And you're like, oh, basically it will shave you like 2 days off your travel time. And you explain, blood and sap to activate it, etc. And she seems a bit sort of skeptical at first. Because you're like, oh yeah, there's these like 2 magic gateways. But after a bit, she's like, well, it seems incredible, but I suppose, given all the strange things that occurred during the nights of colourless fire, it's no more bizarre than some of them. No,
Exactly.
I think I know you. I know we're not exactly bosom companions, Quentin, but I think I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't come here and present me with something like this if it was merely a fiction.
Well, I've used it, so it wouldn't be fiction, would it?
Yes, and it would certainly explain how you've managed to get back from Brackenwall to here in half the time I was expecting.
So, are we in agreement?
I think we have an agreement.
Excellent.
So, so that I can get this straight, just to make sure I understand, I don't want there to be any miscommunication between us. The plan is that I'm going to send a number of our proficient members through these gates to Brackenwald. They're going to mark out buildings of interest. We're then going to rob said buildings and escape using these gateways of yours, all as part of an effort to besmirch the reputation of Tristan, in the hope that he'll be removed from his position.
That's correct, because I can think of no pain greater for the man than being removed from his position.
Indeed, it'll certainly give him a bloody nose, so to speak. And obviously, once he is removed and the mayor learns of these gateways, by which time we will have withdrawn anyway, the mayor can then use the gateways as a leverage with whoever is appointed as Tristan's replacement to gain some concessions on our side instead of theirs.
That's correct. Thus making more profit for the city,
Yes.
therefore more profit for yourselves.
Yes, as I said, it's audacious, but I like it. Yes, we'll do that. I'll as soon as I leave here, I'll put together a group of my most trusted and proficient men, and I'll send them through this gateway.
Excellent.
I take it there's nothing else specifically that you wish us to do when our people arrive at Brackenwald?
Only if they fancy a little bit of pickpocketing.
Well, I think it goes without saying that some of them are probably going to engage in a little bit of that. But yes, if these, and again, I don't mean any insult, but if these gateways work as you say they do, then I'm sure our people can quickly exit. And after all, it's normally, as I'm sure you know, it's people aren't normally caught in the act, so to speak. It's in the days afterwards that the incautious pickpocket gets caught, so to speak. Whereas if you're already 2 days away, yes, I can. And she's still like, she smiles to herself and sort of scratches near her eye patches. Yes, I think this will work.
Well, you lot have fun.
Oh, we will, Quentin, we will, thank you. And I won't forget whose plan this was.
Wow. Until we meet again.
Indeed. And given how much you've helped the Crimson Coin, I think we can safely say that, to use one of the mayor's terms, your stock is on the rise in the Crimson
Excellent.
Coin.
One last thing
Yes?
I do need to mention to you. He really does believe there is a Duke now.
I see. How did you persuade him of that?
Well, I gave him a crimson coin and introduced myself as a Duke. Now he believes they actually exist.
That is fine by me. However, I will put. I'm sure you know your own business better than I do, Quentin, but I will point out that you've potentially exposed yourself to some danger there should he seek any retribution when he's removed from his current position. Obviously, should any retribution be forthcoming, we'll of course try and help you out as best we can, since you are a member of the Crimson Coin. It's the
Thank
least
you,
we do
but
for any of our members.
if it does happen, I'll deal with him.
He says, also, one other thing. Aside from myself, you're probably the one of our most proficient members of the Crimson Coin at the moment. Certainly, no one else would have come up with a plan as audacious as this. I'll most likely be leading the the group that heads through to Brackenwold, just so I can make sure everything runs as smoothly as I plan it to. Hopefully, there'll be no problems. But if something does happen to me while I'm at Brackenwold, the Crimson Coin will need someone to fill in for me. And, well, since you've already seemed to have assumed the mantle of our mysterious Duke, would you consider stepping into that position yourself?
Should the unfortunate happen, I will consider it. Until that point, I will not consider it.
Thank you. Well, hopefully it won't be necessary, but if I wouldn't want, if anything did happen to me, like the worst should happen, I wouldn't like to see everything we've worked for here go to waste. And I fully believe that if I were to simply die or pass on, and there was no one ready to step into that place, the infighting amongst those just below me would quite possibly tear the Crimson Coin apart. Whereas the Duke, such as he is already a known quantity in the Crimson Coin. So if the Duke steps in to assume leadership, effectively it wouldn't seem like a change of leadership because I'm simply a humble lieutenant. And she smiles.
I understand.
Well, I best go and start organising all of this. Hopefully I'll see you when we get back.
As I said, enjoy yourselves.
Oh, we will. We will. And she turns and leaves.
I'll just sit back on the chair and drink some of this brandy I got, or whatever it was. Rum.
Splendid. So, what I'm going to suggest we do now, guys, is we have a 5-minute comfort break, use of facilities, refresh your drink, etc. Have a think about what you want to do next. And when we come back, we'll sort of do you guys like meeting up and you can decide what you want to do next. So,
cool.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. So what does old Brock make of what's going on then?
It's a lot of old witchcraft as usual.
I was waiting for the when Thorn Rosie came in for like Brock to just like flipping the table like witchery.
No, he's gonna view from a distance.
Yeah.
Tonight, because he don't believe in 8-foot women. He don't think that's a thing. Not that he's seen before, anyway. So
No.
And he don't like the name of the region she comes from.
Well, yeah, that's fair. It's a bit on the nose, isn't it?
We'll see. He can't save the world on his own, so he's got to fight his battles.
That's it. And also we've got Quentin potentially like moving in higher up in the Crimson Coin.
Won it all, mate.
That's
You
it.
don't stop. You don't stop at just one.
No, definitely one's never enough, is it?
I mean, honestly, I'm just thinking, how much chaos can I sow for other people to do for me?
Makes sense. So what's Malcolm making of everything that's going on thus far? Can't hear you, dude.
I guess it's kind of good that Peggy is not pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Atrix survived. I think I was quite fond of her as an NPC. And I guess somewhat disappointed that Tristan is still alive, but we'll get to that.
And win them all.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Excellent. How about Weimar? What's he thinking of what's going on at the minute?
I really like the fact that we've got. Let me pull up the map here. That we've got a sort of very fractured area in terms of like who's calling the shots where, and we've got these like new sort of. I guess like legit, like these guys are legit in Hagshore. Like they're the local, government and stuff, which was not even on the table in the previous world. I quite enjoy the fact that we've got these sort of very disparate, very different sort of power centers on the map here.
Excellent.
Very much looking forward to it, and it's fun, making these deals with them, and I'm very much looking forward to us going on the grand tour, visiting these places.
Indeed. Okay, so as we jump back into it, obviously you guys have had your meeting with the mayor and with Thorn Rosie. Quentin has done his business with the Crimson Coin. Are you guys all planning to meet back up at the tavern, or?
I would imagine so.
Okay, yeah, so we'll smash cut to the Hunter and Beetle. It's fairly sort of late in the evening, so people are starting to gather. Like the bar area's a bit more full. Obviously you guys have paid for lodgings here, so, and people have sort of got used to you coming and going. I see you got a few sort of strange looks the first few times you came in because of your antiquated sort of fashion, but you sort of most of you sort of reattired yourselves for to sort of blend in a bit more, and people have got used to sort of seeing you about the place anyway. So there's barely a ripple raised as you guys walk back in, because you live here, you'll have been going in and out all the time, so people are used to seeing you. You head in, and there's as you head in, you're also meet up on your table, and as you're sat there, you hear a fellow on the table next to you, and he's this is all a few hours later, obviously, because you've done various business, you've had to travel around, etc. You're a fellow on the opposite table, and he's like, no, I swear it. And a couple of people sat on the table with him, and they're like, oh, go on with you. How much have you had to drink? And he's like, all right, yeah, I've had a few, but I'm telling you. And they're like, nah. And then, and then one of them points at his flag, and they're like, you had a few too many of them, mate. And he's like, oh, all right, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I had a bit to drink. But look, I know my way around New Zealand, and I'm telling you, saw it, or rather I didn't see it, with my own two eyes. And they're like, yeah, whatever.
What didn't you see?
You sort of say that, and this fella looks over, and he's like, well, I was telling him, I was walking down one of the streets in the North Side district, and then, and like I said, I know my way around New Zealand. I'm born and raised, and I was walking down this road, and then suddenly I was at the end of the road without having gone down the road. I seemed to just turn onto this particular street, and then I was at the end of it, coming out the other side. And he's like, normally it takes me a good 10 minutes, Long Old Street, it takes me a good 10 minutes to walk down it. This it was just like that, and he snaps his fingers. And his mates are basically sort of behind him, and they're like, yeah. One was like, yeah, pay no mind to him, he'd been drinking for a couple of hours, he's probably just forgot. And he's like, no, honestly, I'm telling you. I turned onto the street. I took maybe 2 steps, maybe 3, I don't know. And just coming through north side, I just passed all the furriers up there. I was on my way past all the roofers and all like that at Malarkey. And well, I turned onto this street, took 2 steps, and now I was coming out the other end.
I'm gonna approach this guy, and
Yeah.
quite stern faced, quite serious.
He looks like a normal sort of like commonplace labourer. He's wearing like workman's clothes, like like overalls, basically like the equivalent. Like bit of stubble. He's quite sort of like muscular, but it's not like honed sort of combat muscle. It's like, I'm like a labourer. I'm used to lifting heavy stuff like all day. And he does smell a lot of booze.
Yeah, well, don't we all?
He's got like a bit of foam from his beer on his stubble.
And what street is this?
He looks over at you and he's like, oh, all right, big fellow. He's like, and at this point, I'm gonna turn this over to you, Brock. I'm gonna give you the opportunity. What would you like to name this street? It's a street in the affluent north side sort of district. It's not as wealthy as the east side, but it's not as poor as south side. It's like the sort of in between area.
And what's it sort of known for? Is it a trade?
Wow.
There's loads of shops, or?
Let me move you all onto the New Zealand map, and I'll show you where it is. Okay, so let me know when you're all on the map.
The world map,
Circle say
or...
Gabe paused.
Oh, that's bizarre. It should have moved you all onto the New Zealand map. Okay, so while we're waiting, I'll describe it to you guys anyway. Basically, there's through the north gate. There's like the main thoroughfare that comes down through the north gate. There's a lot of furriers and trackers and hunters and stuff like that have shops around there. That's where Malcolm went to previously when you hired like the woodsman who showed you the way to like the north. As you're sort of like facing into the city, to the left of you, so to the east, is the north side residential district, which is just your standard sort of level like residential. You're like your workers and your professionals live there, not like your really like rich nobles, but also not like your really poor like dockside workers. There's like some hat makers around there. There's some shoemakers, like roofers and masons and plasterers and stuff like that. And then aside from like the main thoroughfare, there is like a sort of side street that like cuts the north side district in half. It's like the main route through north side, and it's that street he claims to have been walking down. And he's sort of like, I just took 2 steps into it, and then like I was at the end of it.
Right, so it's joining the north and the next sort of street down, sort of thing, or the main. Okay. Is it quite a main street? Is it quite a big street, or is it?
It's a pretty big street. It's not the size of like the main central street that goes directly through, sort of bisecting New Zealand, but it's a fairly substantial sort of street through the north side district.
I don't know. I was hoping to look at the map for inspiration, but let me just refresh it. See if it comes up.
Okay.
No, that has made it worse.
Takes a minute to reload.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, guys. Very briefly, I'll share my screen with you, and hopefully you'll be able to see it here. So can you guys see my screen here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so it's this street we're talking about. So this is the street where your icon is. That's the main thoroughfare through New Zealand, and it's this street that goes through North Side that he's talking about.
Okay. And we haven't got any street names at this present.
No,
All right. Okay.
so you've got pretty much free reign, to be honest.
It's a residential area.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it high rise.
Okay, high rise. That's fine. Okay, yeah. So he says he was walking down high rise in North Side. He took 2 steps down the street, and then he was coming out to the end of it by the old shoemakers at the southern edge of it. And he's like, well, normally it takes me at least 10-15 minutes to walk down that road, but I took 2 steps into it and I was coming straight out of it.
So he was travelling south and just, came out at the end.
Yeah, he was like, I started walking down the street, and then like without seeming to pass through the intervening street, I was coming out the end of it.
And that was this evening, or?
He says,
Earlier
it was.
today?
He says, it was only about an hour ago. And he says, well, get me right. I tried going back down the street. I took 2 steps back into it, and then I was coming out the north side of it again.
And did you see anything strange down the street?
No, looked perfectly normal. But when I tried walking down the street, like I say, came out the other end of it. I said, well, that after I did it the second time, that gave me a right funny turn. So I followed the outer walls round till I got to here, and then I thought, wow, bugger this, I'm coming in for a drink.
And with that, I think Brock will go and have a look. And Lana go with him.
Okay, obviously the rest of you are in the tavern when this is going on. I'm hoping you can all see the New Zealand map now.
Yes, Max.
You all seem to be
I'll
on it.
definitely follow Brock. We don't want the man mountain destroying places.
Yeah, so I'm moving your icon.
Yeah,
to
I'll tell you where.
street.
I'll just say I'm going to have a look.
Yep, so you head from the tavern, which is here, over to High Rise Street, which is here. And as you look down it, like I say, you're in a fairly well-to-do residential area. Like I say, mostly professionals and workers, not nobles, but also it's not dirt poor either. It's fairly late on in the evening, so most of the shops and the traders have shut down for the evening. You can see the occasional sort of candle or lantern burning in a shop as you walk past. You get, obviously any of you want can go along, you get to the southern edge of High Rise Street. You look down it, you can see these residential buildings on either side of the street. The sort of compacted dirt of the road beckons ahead of you, and at the far end of High Rise Street you can see where it sort of splits in two and follows the outer wall of the city to the west and to the east.
Okay.
You don't see anything obviously strange.
Okay. I'll ask if whoever's come with me. I'm going to ask him to sort of wait here and just watch in case something strange does happen, and I'm going to just start to walk down the street.
I'll stand at the corner and wait then.
Okay, not
And
a
I'll
problem.
leave Lan there as well. Yeah.
Yep, so the rest of you who are there, you watch as Brock's like, I'll just keep an eye on me in case anything happens, and he starts walking down High Rise Street. He takes maybe half a dozen steps, and then suddenly he's gone. He just vanishes, and then like instantly you see him like appear, like almost like no time passes. He just appears at the other end of the street. And as far as you're concerned, Brock, you like take a couple of steps and suddenly you're like there looking at the wall of New Zealand, like at the other end of the street, but you don't seem to have like passed the intervening street. If you see what I mean.
I'm gonna just pick something up off the street, like bit of stone or something, and chuck it back the way I just come.
Yep, you throw a stone back the way you've just come. It lands on the road in front of you, like in the middle of the street, and just like drops to the floor.
Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, that's where I've just walked through, but I didn't walk through.
Yeah. Whatever if strange effect seems to have taken place on you doesn't appear to have affected the stone.
Well, I'll walk back the other way then to see if I return to where I left the others.
Okay, so you guys see Brock at the far end of the street. He turns around, takes a few steps back, and again he just vanishes and almost instantly like appears at the other end of the street nearest to you guys. And as far as you're concerned, Brock, you're walking down the street and then suddenly like you're at the other end of it and you're like walking towards your associates.
I'll say this has got to be something to do with those or that hag. Witchcraft like this doesn't or didn't exist in our town before them.
Where are they building?
I don't know. Did they say where they were going to set up shop?
They didn't specify, no. They did say obviously it was going to be in the sort of like the trade district, which is pretty much where you are. Because as you can see on the map, like the furriers, the hat makers, the shoemakers, the roofers, the plasterers, they're all sort of clustered around this area, and this is where the traders tend to live in the area you're in now.
Yep.
Why don't we go around the back, come down an alleyway, into the street, see what's happening?
Yeah, is there any such alleyways?
There's plenty of little alleyways between buildings. Obviously, they're not shown on the map, but there's plenty of them about.
Yeah.
But
well, we can do that.
Yeah, let's get to the middle of the street. Yeah.
You
and we'll stagger a little bit so that if one of us disappears, the others will see it.
Yeah, you spend a few minutes trying this out. However, when you head through these alleyways, at the point you get where you'd be entering the main street, you basically blink out like Brock did, and then you find yourself on an alleyway on the other side of the street.
Can I see into the street though from here?
Yeah, if you're in an alleyway looking out into the street, it looks like the normal street. But when you get to the threshold of it, you just instantly seem to like wink to the opposite side of it, almost like teleported sort of thing.
So the trick is to try and get halfway between that teleport and... So literally got to stand on the threshold.
But they're letting you see what they want you to see, whoever's doing this.
I'll try and figure out where the threshold is for moving from one spot to the other.
Okay, the threshold appears to be the borders of the actual street itself. So it's when you step onto High Rise Street, that seems to be where it takes effect. So previously when Brock was walking through it, technically, until he took his couple of steps, he was on the street that it leads onto. But when he took a couple of steps onto what was actually High Rise Street, that's when he like teleported to the other end. And likewise, when you're in an alleyway, once you actually step out of the alleyway onto High Rise Street, that's where you wink onto the other side of it.
I wonder what happens when you peep around the corner.
You can try.
Go on, bro. Give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try not entering the street, but looking into the street, as it were.
Yep, you peek just your head forward and look into the street, and you don't wink out of existence and appear anywhere else. And as you look up and down the street, it looks perfectly normal. A series of sort of higgledy-piggledy residential buildings, compacted dirt street.
And I just I'll talk. I'll just say, Lan, can you hear me? And see if she can hear me while I got my head sort of.
You hear from behind. She's like, yes, husband, I can hear you.
There's some sort of witchcraft here.
She says, yes, there's some sort of evil sorcery afoot here.
How do we uncover it? Maybe one of our companions and those strange weapons they carry will help us. I suggest we head back to the tavern.
All right.
And consult with them.
Okay, so Quentin, Brock, and Lan, you head back to the tavern where Malcolm and Weimar are. Malcolm and Weimar, have you done anything in particular while they've been out experimenting with this strange sort of effect?
I guess we've been talking to Fabio.
That's absolutely fine. You can talk to Fabio. Is there anything in particular you want to talk to him about?
I guess we're just agreeing with him when we're going to leave to go to the mall, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, he's keen to get going off in search of the Philosopher's Stone as quickly as you can. Obviously, he's pleased to see that you've come back sort of relatively rapidly. He's trying not to show it, but he's a little bit sort of excited and a little bit impatient. Like I say, it's been his life's work, so he says to try and find this Philosopher's Stone, and now he's sort of champing at the bit to get going because he thinks it's almost within his grasp. But he also seems like he doesn't want to seem ungrateful because you paid for his lodgings for a week, so he doesn't want to seem like he's pressuring you or not show any gratitude for the fact you've paid for his lodgings and whatever. But obviously he's really keen to get moving.
Yeah, and additionally, I would have started to arrange at least the for the Masons to go up to Brackenwall, as we had agreed with the Lord that we would send help in fixing their damage.
Okay.
So
quick question: I was going to say, who's going to pay for these masons?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how much are they wanting for it?
Let's have a look. See if I find how much it. Do you know what? I've got this written down in my notes. Don't know if I've got masons written down, but I've got other costs written down. Let's see. So skilled tradespeople. So we're looking at, for each mason, they're probably going to want at least 60 to 100 gold pieces.
We said 400.
Yeah. They're bound to have local. They have labor up there.
Oh yeah, of course,
They just need these guys to.
Okay, yeah. So you spend 400 gold. Obviously, cost that off your funds, and you hire the services of 4 masons, which actually hiring them takes you to the district just to the south of where Brock and Quentin are at the minute. So as Quentin and Brock, as you're sort of heading back towards the tavern, you actually meet Weimar and Malcolm, who've just concluded this business with these masons and send them on their way, and you sort of meet up in basically the central sort of square of New Zealand as they're heading out of where the masons and plasterers are, and you're heading south from the north side district.
So we'll head straight over to them.
Yep.
And I'll be looking pretty angry, which is fairly common. But Weimar, what have you done? You've made agreements with some hag who's infested our town.
he shouts loudly, his voice like booming out through the square.
Yeah. Come look at this. And he'll stomp off towards High Rise Street.
I'll turn to Malcolm and say, this will be great. I guarantee you. This will be something.
Yep, so Ibn Quentin take you to High Rise Street, the main sort of street that runs through the North Side residential district, and they display this effect for you, which you see as described previously. Whenever someone steps over the threshold into High Rise Street, they find themselves instantly walking out the other end without seeming to pass over the intervening street itself. But when you look down the street, it looks perfectly normal, nothing untoward. However, as you get nearer, Malcolm, you notice that your sword gets noticeably warm.
Okay. And if I touch it, can I see anything different?
Okay, you touch the sword, and then there's like a sort of hazy, almost atmospheric disturbance that you and only you see in the air in front of you. And as you peer down the street, as you watch, you can actually see, bizarre though it looks, that like a couple of the buildings in the street, like the whole street appears to be like sliding apart. And in the space between them, there appears to be like another building, sort of like in that sort of like almost Beetlejuice style, sort of like growing up out of the ground. And unsurprisingly to you, you can see several of the sort of green, grey-skinned, tusked humanoids standing in front of it. And you can see Thorn Rosie standing in front of this building that's growing up. She's sort of holding a hand like this to her forehead.
Okay.
And she's just watching this building like...
And if I try and step through the haze, do I get transported, or does knowing that it's there allow me to step in through it?
Again, make me a save versus spells.
Seem to be disconnected. Can you roll it for me,
Yeah,
John?
of course I can, no problems. Just give me a moment. There we go. Okay, that is a success with a natural 20, no less. So,
Nice.
as you sort of like with your hand still on the sword, you step into High Rise Street. To the rest of you guys, Malcolm steps over the threshold, but instead of like winking to the other end, he just disappears. He's just gone. To you, Malcolm, you step onto the street, and as you do, the sort of illusion, let's call it, of like a perfectly normal street fades away, and you now can clearly see these buildings like sliding apart, and this building sort of growing up almost like a plant or like a fungus blooming like between these two buildings. You can see the sort of 8-foot tall, pallid, beautiful looking figure of Thorn Rosie with her hand like this, sort of looking at it, her eyes sort of like slightly closed, and she's flanked by a number of these like tusked figures.
Okay. So I guess I'll approach and see if anyone notices me.
Okay, as you approach, one of the tusked figures does notice you. He turns around towards you, and you see him like reach for a weapon, a sword at his waist. He like draws it, and as he draws the sword out, the sort of like shh of the sword coming out. Thorn Rosie obviously hears it, and she sort of shakes her head slightly and lowers her hand, and then she turns towards you and says, "Oh, Mr. Hobb, what a pleasant surprise."
Miss Rosie. There was a bit of a scene caused by your construction, and I just wanted to make sure everything was okay and that it would be done relatively shortly.
Yes, of course. I do apologise for any inconvenience caused. I appreciate my methods are somewhat unorthodox. However, the weaving that I've created over this street to to cause minimal disruption amongst the locals, hence us doing it at night as well. But we should be done in a couple of hours.
Okay.
At which point she gestures towards this building that sort of like slowly continued to like grow up, and you can see like as it's sort of expanding outwards, it's slowly sort of taking the form of this very luxurious like bathhouse. And it's like seems to be like, as you're watching it, like extra rooms are sort of like expanding out of it, and like sort of like luxurious like curtains are sort of appearing on it, almost like a sort of fairy tale like cottage that's sprouting up of its own accord. She gestures to it and she says, "What do you think?"
It looks delightful. I look forward to visiting when it is completed.
Oh yes. You really must. I tell you what. Since you're such a good friend of my sister's, the first visit for yourself and your companions is on me, so to speak.
Ah, very generous of you.
Oh, not at all. Your first visit to the baths of Astralon will be on the house, so to speak.
Ah, thank you. But let me leave you to your work. And I will just let people know that there is nothing to be concerned about.
Oh, splendid! If you would, I'd be ever so grateful. As I say, we'll be done in an hour or two, and then once we're done, the weaving won't be necessary anymore, and people will be able to go about their business normally.
Yeah. Cool. Well met again, and I look forward to visiting when you're up and running.
Indeed. Is there anything special that we can lay on for you? We do pride ourselves in delivering good quality customer service.
No, I think I just visit the baths and.
Splendid. Well, if you simply tell the attendant on the front desk that I am paying for the first visit of yourself and your friends, they'll see you straight through and they'll ensure your needs are taken care of.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Indeed. Good day to you.
And to you. And then I'll walk back towards Brock and the guys.
Okay, so after a few moments, you guys suddenly like Malcolm just like appears at the edge of the street in front of you.
So I'll probably be telling Brock, listen, I'm just saying this probably has more to do with what happened in the other place on the island rather than any local whatever it is. And then I guess
It's nothing to do with the woman that come from Hagshaw.
I'll just be like, I just walked up and down the street. There's nothing going on here. It's just a normal street. I think you've had too much to drink. And I go back to the inn. And off I trek.
I'll say to Brock, I don't claim to understand fully what just happened.
All right.
Let's go
With
have a drink.
that, I shall stomp back to the tavern. If I find anything I can pick up and throw against anything hard, I shall do that. And I'll
that's
just,
fine.
like a crate or something, I'll just chuck it against the wall. And I say, so it's all right to just mess with people's minds, is it? And just move them around so they can't travel. And it'll be just kicking stuff and mumbling to himself.
Okay,
making deals with.
roll me a
hags.
d6, Brock.
I have rolled. Hasn't come up yet. Unless you can see it.
No, I can't see it yet. I don't know what's going on with this.
Oh, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, I'll just quickly roll it. Okay. So you're walking down the street, so you see you've smashed a crate. You're sort of going like, oh, so it's all right for you, like messing around people's minds, and like shouting.
Yeah, just
And,
trying to stop.
You see, like as you're sort of like a bit up ahead, like Malcolm and the rest of you, you see like a few of the New Zealand like town guards walk up. They obviously see you at the front of the party, Weimar, and they sort of salute. And then one of them says, "Is everything all right, sir? We heard the disturbance," and he sort of like peeks around you, and it looks like Brock is like raging in the background.
Everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. Man's got a temper.
You don't need us to have a word with them or anything, sir?
No. I'll take care of it.
Very good, sir. Very good. Obviously, we don't want any disturbances setting anyone ill at ease. I'm sure you understand, sir. But we're sure you know your business, sir. We'll leave it in. They all salute again, and they like march off down one of the side streets.
Give them a stern look if I see them as well.
Yeah, that's fine. You see that as they sort of like, oh, we're sure you know your business. They sort of like hesitate a bit, like, oh, you sure we don't need to deal with this? But then they like start walk off. It's like Brock's like giving him the old like,
yeah, you want some? You come over here as well. So he's just going to be in just a strop now, and he's just going to heavy drinking session.
Indeed. And as you retire back to the inn, that is where we're going to draw a close to this evening's session, as we fade to black with you guys at the end. Malcolm being like, look guys, there's nothing to worry about, everything's fine, continue about your business. And Brock's like, it's magic, I tell you, like kicking chairs over. And
I was like, and I'll be in the background. It's like, I will buy you 100 crates. Just don't break the chairs.
Indeed, and we sort of fade to black on that slightly chaotic scene where, ironically, like your main chaotic party member's not the one causing the chaos.
I was trying to draw the attention away from Quentin.
Indeed. And that's where we fade to black. So thank you very much for playing the session this evening, guys. Again, I know it was a bit of a talky one, but I hope you all still enjoyed it.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, that's right.
And again, apologies for the various technical problems. I'm not really sure what was going on with that this evening.
Yeah, apologies for being late.
So I do, these things happen. But obviously we'll sort out XP and whatnot in a minute. But for now, it just remains for me to thank my wonderful players and anyone who watches this now or in the future. Thanks very much. Hopefully we'll catch you in the next episode. I'll end the stream here.